All right, so let's track the latest on the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. A live look at the Guthrie home, approaching 7 p.m. Arizona time. By the way, what I want to do next, I want to show, and I'm hoping producer Caleb, we could hook our questions into FNN 28 for us, please. What we're going to do is we're going to take your guys' questions relating to the Guthrie case. This is something that we've been doing now for the past week or so. What I want to do is show you guys the QR code on the screen. Looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties bringing this up. So while we're waiting for that, let's get the latest from Fox's Caroline Elliott as we are in now day 17 of the Guthrie search.
The Pima County Sheriff is now sharing the DNA results found inside Nancy Guthrie's home, and it looks like finding the suspect in this case won't be easy.
The DNA on the glove that was found 2 miles away was submitted for CODIS, and I just heard that CODIS had no hits.
Investigators have been focusing on two critical pieces of evidence, the glove and the DNA found inside the home. But the sheriff says both samples could not be identified in the FBI's national database.
We're looking at to try to find this individual, whether it be DNA, whether it be that ring camera video, whether it be evidence at a Walmart that might lead us to somebody.
Other evidence being scrutinized includes the backpack and clothing the suspect was seen wearing on Guthrie's doorbell camera. Investigators are working with Walmart to see if they can determine who may have purchased the bag, which is exclusively sold at the superstore, and whether the jacket was purchased there as well. FBI agents are also asking questions at local gun stores.
He wanted to know if I could help him pull up in my system if any of these people have purchased a gun in the last year.
It's now been 17 days since Nancy Guthrie disappeared, but the sheriff says his team is dedicated to bringing her home.
What I do know is we won't quit. We're going to keep after you. We will find you, and we'll find Nancy.
The sheriff is following up on multiple leads in this case, but at this time, he says there's no evidence that Nancy Guthrie was taken out of the country. In Tucson, Arizona, Caroline Elliott, Fox News.
Caroline reporting from southern Arizona. This is what I wanted to show you before we went out to Caroline. If you want to ask questions to our analysts and experts, we're going to be doing this again tonight. You can scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you to a web page. Once you get on that web page, you're going to want to click on the Ask Now tab. There, you can submit a question. You very well may see that question posed to one of our analysts and experts as the night progresses. If QR codes aren't your thing, by the way, you can go to livenowfox.com/connect. It'll take you to the very same web page. Same instructions, the Ask Now tab. You go there, submit your question. You very well may see it later on in the evening. All right, law enforcement expert, former sheriff's detective and investigator Jamie Copenhaver here with me, as he's been with me most nights that we've been covering this. Jamie, as always, appreciate you coming on. Basically, a live look at the house, a story of the past couple of days. Firstly, I didn't have a chance to talk to you yesterday after the sheriff's department said that they are basically omitting the possibility that the family had anything to do with the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. We also learned today that, and Caroline was alluding to this, no matches in the FBI's database for that glove that they were investigating, Jamie. So if there's no matches in the FBI's database, how common is it for investigators to not find evidence or to find evidence and then to not be able to have traceable DNA in that evidence? Is this a fairly common occurrence?
Unfortunately, it is. I mean, keep in mind, you have a pool of millions of people, Austin. That database, CODIS, that's only, the information dumped into CODIS are only from convicted felons, people that are in the system that are added to that CODIS database. So unfortunately, it could be a whodunit. They've never been caught before. Therefore, they're not going to be in the CODIS system.
CODIS is basically the standard system that every law enforcement agency would use. Is there any other pathways, any other methods to get a test like this done, or is CODIS going to be the one way to do it?
I mean, officially, that's what the FBI utilizes. There's some other private companies out, to perhaps check your history of your family to find out where your family origin from, et cetera. Here's what I'm thinking. It's a very good possibility in this case. I could almost see the sheriff maybe potentially trying to get a court order for some of those private companies that may have DNA. Certainly that would be questionable with the Fourth Amendment people, right? The right of privacy without search. But I could certainly see that maybe being utilized in this case based on we're going into day 17 with no basic leads in terms of who done this.
We have been asking the audience to send in questions. Christy from Portland, Maine, sending this in. How can Sheriff Nanos clear all family publicly when he doesn't know who is responsible yet? Isn't that impossible? Christy asks.
You know, it is and it isn't. And I think what the sheriff, in my opinion, I think he did an excellent job coming out and giving that interview, may have got ahead of the skis a little bit, in my opinion. As an investigator, you want to hold all of that until you 100% either leave the people in the pool of suspects or toss them out, you know, excluding them from the person being involved in this. So it may be a little bit premature, in my opinion, for the sheriff to come out and make that public statement. Here's the other reason for that, Austin. It could be very well that the family's getting pressure. It's a trend on social media as to the family, whether they're involved or not involved. And we're not saying that on the air right here, but that is trending. So I think the sheriff was trying to take some pressure off of the family by releasing that statement the way he did it.
Can that glove still provide valuable information despite a DNA match not coming through?
Absolutely. You know, if you look at that fifth letter, that indicator that they had knowledge of where Nancy Guthrie was, they had indicated that they knew who the persons were responsible. So, you know, if I was the investigator, if I had communication with the person that sent the last letter in, wanting that reward money, you know, I would want to employ him, if you will, to try to get some DNA from those suspects. But here's the other thing. If none of this matches up and it's unknown and it's an UD sub at this point, you're going to go out and work the leads, you're going to work out the tips, and you're essentially going to cast that net wider for a different pool of people to submit for comparison for whatever they have at the lab to compare with. So unfortunately, you're going to continue fishing until you get a bite.
All right. So Mia with this question. Mia's in Atlanta. If the suspect was in the home for up to 40 minutes, what were they doing for that long? Is it a possibility that they were looking for something they thought Miss Nancy had? Could it be the case of targeting the wrong home, Jamie?
You know, Mia, that's a great question. I have that question every day I wake up. That is a very long time period to be in that house. You know, there's speculation. Did she come home? Was she home when this occurred? We're not even 100% sure if she made it home, right? We've heard two narratives. But in terms of that time, 41 minutes is a very long time. Keep in mind, here's how I would answer that. If you're there to kidnap or abduct a person from their residence, Austin, you want to get in and get out undetected quickly and fast. So here's the deal. Either A, they were cleaning up something that they left behind, or B, they were in fact searching that house, looking for whatever they were looking for, whether it's money, perhaps a file on a thumb drive. We just don't know. We're speculating, but I have to agree with you. The 41 minutes is probably the worst question I have in my mind. What took place? Were they cleaning up? We just don't know, but it's a long period of time to be in that home.
What are the biggest challenges that investigators face 17 days into a missing persons case?
Time. You know, it's grim in my opinion. We're going into 17 days. This elderly lady has a heart issue. She's challenged somewhat health-wise, and she's probably not in the best of health right now if she's still with us. So, you know, you've got to continue to work the leads. I think what the sheriff did today is kind of come out and refresh, you know, don't look at the family, don't treat my victims like this. But that was a good message because that tells us that he still doesn't have the right connection, the right dots connected to pin this on someone. And, you know, we're hearing rumors south of the border, perhaps in Mexico. You know, they're going to search all of that. Here's the caveat of all the above, Austin. They're going to go back and recap at one point and put together all the evidence from day one, reassess the case, and go back and see if they've missed anything in the past 17 days that they may have missed or overlooked. But also, there are going to be some science that I hope comes back regarding the point of entry, and some other DNA stuff that's my understanding they sent to a lab recently that they haven't got the results back. So all the above, but I really truly think they need to reset and look at the evidence to see if anything was missed leading up to today.
You know, Jamie, you and Kimberly are on the same wavelength. She says, is the FBI searching in Mexico? I mean, after all, let's just make something clear. Southern Arizona, you are incredibly close to the Nogales port of entry and any other entry that's along the border. I mean, we're talking about a crime scene that's really not too far away from Mexico, Jamie. Is the FBI doing anything there?
Yeah, Kimberly, great question. We're 12 miles from the Guthrie home to the border, so that's a very short distance. Here's what's going on behind the scenes that we're perhaps not hearing about or seeing. The fifth letter that came in indicated south of the border. Austin, you have to follow up on that letter to legitimize it, to see if it's legit, if you can debunk it. But you're going to put fillers out with the federales in Mexico. We have a pretty good relationship with the Mexican president and the government. So I can assure you, special agents of the FBI are down in Mexico, probably canvassing the areas. Here's something I would hope to see in the future is some type of billboard or some type of information in Mexico concerning Nancy Guthrie and her picture, et cetera, offering the reward money. And keep in mind, we're looking at $100K now as it stands for the reward. So they're doing all the above.
You know, I've thought a lot about the Mexico piece of this. If somebody does flee to Mexico, again, we have no clue where the investigation is taking investigators. We don't know if it's taking them to Mexico. But hypothetically, if somebody does flee to Mexico, is it easy for a person to stay in Mexico? They're on the run. They're trying to evade capture in the U.S. Is it easy for somebody to stay in Mexico once they get there?
Depends on where you're at. Let me give you an example. If you go to North Korea and you get into that country, good luck on getting that fugitive out of North Korea, right? But let's use some common sense, Austin, and I always like to put the common sense hat on. We have a pretty good relationship with Mexico. The current administration, regardless of what you see in the press, he does have a relationship. But let's not lose the fact of the men and women in law enforcement on the U.S. side and the federales on the Mexican side, right? So they work hand in hand every day on criminal cases. If this pans out that this individual's in Mexico, we came down there and went down there and recovered fugitives many times from south of the border, right? So rest assured, they have agents assigned to Mexico, and they're sharing information every day. I would be very surprised if they're not looking as we speak to try to legitimize who this person is in the fifth letter.
So another question coming in. Let's bring this up from Mark. He's in Queens. Since there was no DNA matches in the national database, does that mean the kidnapper is not from the USA? What puts somebody in this database? There's a range of things that can get you in there, correct, Jamie?
Absolutely, Mark. And what you're looking for is anyone that were arrested, convicted. They're going to take samples of your DNA and put it into the CODIS database. But keep in mind, just because you're not in the CODIS database doesn't mean you're not going to get caught and exposed, right? So we've seen cases, cold cases perhaps, that you're not in that database, but through good investigative techniques, good leads, and good tips, that will get the investigation to a point where you perhaps may get a court order for the person's DNA. We've seen multiple search warrants play out too. What were the purposes of the search warrant? Did they recover or take swabbings as DNA samples from that or those individuals? We don't know. We're not speculating on that, but we have to ask. But all the above. So you just cast the net bigger and just work the street as tirelessly as you can. And also, it's my understanding that these men and women are sleeping in cars, they're sleeping in hotel rooms, they're sleeping anywhere they can. They're working 18 to 20 hours a day. So they're on it. They just haven't connected the dots yet.
Yeah. I've talked about press availability with you quite a bit in recent days. That really has kind of become a facet of this story is there were some press conferences early on, and we haven't had a whole lot of press briefings since, I believe, 2 Thursdays ago. It's been a while since there's been one. Now, the media has been invited to do one-on-one interviews with Sheriff Nanos. A number of media outlets have done this, Fox being included there. But does this say anything to you that the sheriff won't hold a full-blown press conference. It's, again, been over a week at this point. Obviously, they are trying to keep information close to their chest if they deem that that is what is best for the investigation. But when you look at the amount of time it's been since there's been an on-camera press conference, does it make you think something's going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's concerning, to be honest with you. I mean, you and I covered this, the latest search warrant in the Range Rover until what, 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, right? We both agreed that we're going to get a presser out of that. Well, Monday came, no press conference. Tuesday came, no press conference. So he shut the press conferences down since, I think, Thursday or Friday of last week. And that has to telegraph that either A, they just don't have anything to publicly announce to the public at a full-blown press conference. But here's the confusing part, Austin. He's doing these independent interviews with media outlets such as Fox and others. So, you know, the word's getting out. I would look at one point, you're not going to hear anything from FBI. They don't do press conferences unless they're invited to one. But I think the sheriff's going to have to get out at one point to sort of do a presser and brief the best he can to bring people up to speed on what they're doing, to give us confidence in that investigation, right? People start losing confidence if they don't hear a presser. That's my concern.
So as I was asking that question, I got alerted from producer Caleb that Christy asked the exact same question. So clearly, a lot of people are interested in a wider ranging press conference. Again, I don't want to make it seem like they have made themselves unavailable to the media. One-on-one interviews have been given, but that's largely what we've been getting is one-on-one interviews and then written statements. I wanted to make sure I gave Christy credit for that one as well. I think we got a couple more of these questions in here. So let's go to Edie. Edie's in Delaware. Even if the DNA doesn't match, Jamie, any DNA in the CODA system, aren't there other things that they can tell from the DNA? For example, can they tell if a DNA is male or female? Can they tell the race? Can they tell anything, even if it doesn't have an exact match?
Absolutely. I don't know if it was leaked or if it was a bona fide interview, but the sheriff came out, I think it was 2 days ago, that indicated that the DNA on the glove apparently came from a male. Now, it certainly didn't cover the race, but it said a male DNA. So that panel certainly hit gold in terms of that. In terms of the age, I don't think the DNA is going to show an age. It could possibly determine if the individual may be sick or have some type of disease or medical condition. Great question for a doc, right? But that DNA is going to tell a lot in terms of is it a male or a female? More importantly, it's sort of, you know, there was speculation, Austin, that 2 people may have been on that video, right? We've heard that, and that's trending on social media. I mean, this should satisfy everyone that that glove was a male subject. What they haven't said is any DNA found in Nancy Guthrie's home. We've not heard anything about that. So, you know, are they comparing DNA within the house to that glove? I personally haven't heard the sheriff come out to make any comment on that, just the glove.
We have one more question, I believe, coming in. I'll give producer Caleb a second to swap these out. Again, we appreciate Edie for that question. Let's wrap up with James in LA. He says, how relevant are the original ransom notes at this point in the investigation? Man, when we first heard of those ransom notes, that was almost all we were talking about. As we're now in the 17th day of this investigation, how relevant do those notes feel, Jamie?
Great question, James. Here's the deal. When that the first ransom letter came over to TMZ and the other media outlet, we were like, okay, this is a full-fledged, it's a kidnapping, right? It's a whodunit. They're wanting money. You know, we've heard the family, Savannah and her family, come out on 2 or 3 videos. She just posted one yesterday, I think it was, saying, you know, we are willing to pay. But it's kind of like puttered out, right? We've not heard anything about the first 3 ransom letters. One, I think it was the second letter, was debunked. FBI effected an arrest on 2 individuals out of California. But I find that very suspicious. From a former investigator's mind, it tells me either A, something may have been paid, and we do know that $300 was sent as a test, but we're not hearing anything about the ransom letters in itself. That sends mixed messages. Had they been paid and they just didn't deliver Nancy Guthrie, or has all communication stopped at this point, and it's a red herring at this point, and they're just using other investigative tactics and lead? Great question.
Jamie Copenhaver with us. Jamie, I'm sure we'll be checking in soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin.